Well, in talking about the suspended belief that you have to have when you go to the theater, you have this thing we call suspended belief. And talking about your performers from around the world and all the things that you guys have done, do you think that the musical theater in the 21st century, do you think that we have conquered stereotyping and typecasting? And I'm a big proponent of colorblind casting, even if it's a historical piece. I want the best person for the job. Do you think that, like Michael, what you're talking about with Showboat and the problems that you had when you guys were doing it back in '69, do you think we've conquered racism in the theater, or?
I don't know that I would call it racism, but we haven't conquered the fear, because even when they did the big revival of Showboat a few years ago in Canada, and then brought it to Broadway, there were picket lines in Canada.
Oh my God.
No, we think we've gotten there, but listen, one of the greatest is I'm doing South Pacific. What about you have to be carefully taught to hate? I did that one time, and a reviewer said, "Oh, this is passe. This is no longer a problem." And those men wrote about it explicitly in the 1940s, So, no, we haven't conquered that yet. I don't know that we ever will.
Right.
But we have to just do what you're talking about. You believe in it. You just make your contribution, and that's all we can do. And then leave it in the hands of the audience.
Right. Well, I want to talk about movie musicals. We're almost out of time, but I want to talk about movie musicals. I mean, I know that I grew up watching musicals on AMC, and this was back when American Movie Channel, back when American Movie Classics, I can't even remember it now, but AMC, they would show like the same two movies all day long. They would just alternate. And I would sit there mesmerized for the entire 12 hours. This was way before they were 24/7. And I would just watch these same movie musicals, alternating every day. And, the weekends were amazing. And when I teach workshops, I go into high schools and I teach workshops, and I'm giving references, and I'm giving easy references. I'm giving, I Love Lucy references, and the kids have never heard of Lucille Ball or I Love Lucy. Right. So they certainly haven't heard of Gwen Verdon. Maybe they've heard of Liza Minnelli. It's shocking to me. But in 2001, the movie Moulin Rouge came out. And it's more a musical the way Broadway started, because Moulin Rouge was a bunch of popular songs that were strung together, with a storyline. And they did it very well, I thought. But, musicals today, we think of there's a composer, there's a lyricist or a librettist, and they work together to make a piece of show to tell a story. But I'm just wondering that, Moulin Rouge is credited with opening the door for Rob Marshall's Chicago, with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger and Richard Gere. And I had that amazing moment watching the Oscars of seeing this huge musical theater number at the beginning of the Oscars with Hugh Jackman. You've got Beyonce dressed up like Joan Russell and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and you've got all these guys look like they're straight out of Top Hats and Tails. And he, at the very end, he said the musical is back, and he said it twice. He said the musical is back. Do you think that we really are moving toward a place where musicals can make it, and become successful in Hollywood? And how has the whole, and we can answer this in any just general free-for-all kind of way, but do you think that musicals have been affected by American Idol and Dancing with the Stars and those kinds of things? Do you think that the musical really is back in terms of the wide general audience?
Say American Idol has totally screwed up people's perspective of musical theater.
Thank you.
I just finished auditions for Chorus Line at LaGuardia. We just did 2 months of auditions. And one girl who was a spectacular dancer, going up for Cassie, sang Music in the Mirror like she was performing on American Idol.
Right.
And they redirected her, told her to come back a week later, do you understand, and sing it again, work with real vocal coaches. She couldn't shake it. She didn't get the part because she had absolutely no connection to the material. Gorgeous voice, amazing dancer. But American Idol, if that's what people are seeing and think that's has any connection whatsoever to a musical, they are mistaken.
Well, see, I look at High School Musical, and I'm thinking, no. That's not musical in terms of what I think a musical is. But at the same time, if it gets kids into the theater, it's great. But then they expect it to be, their first Broadway shows are Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid or Lion King. And then so they think that every Broadway show or every musical theater production has to be this hugely set, flashy costumes, a cast of thousands, and then they go to a black box production or a smaller production that's, pared down, scaled down, everybody's wearing black, and there's scaffolding for the set, and they say, oh, and they're disappointed. I mean, I think
What a shame. Because musical theater can be just as powerful in a black box, for me, again, a young kid looking at Jacques Brel is alive and well. Or the Fantastics, which, again, I did see the Fantastics more than I saw Light in the Piazza.
I love the Fantastics
I
still.
think I did see 30, and I went just recently to see it again at the Snapple Theater. I've seen it twice in the Snapple Theater on Times Square up on 50th Street, right near Colony Music. So I'm addicted to that musical as well. I'm 5'9", so I will never play Louisa. And I guess now that I'm almost 60, maybe I could play the mute or dress up as one of the dads. But I never got to play that musical, and I want to play that musical. So anyway, I think American Idol is really screwing us up. I thought Chicago was an amazing movie musical. I thought Sound of Music was an amazing movie. I really like Sound of Music. I loved Cabaret, but Jay Preston Allen was a friend who wrote the screenplay for that. She was a dear friend and an avid supporter, as was her husband, Lewis Allen, of Annie. When everything looked bleak, we had bad reviews up at Goodspeed, and Jay Preston Allen and Lewis Allen stepped in along with Mike Nichols and saved our little fannies. I think Cabaret was amazing, and I thought the production of the movie of that was every bit as good, if not better, than the Broadway show. But other than that, I got to tell you, for the most part, I like the stage version better.
Yeah.
But I thought Rob Marshall did a great job.
Well, what about the reality TV?
When you say the musical is back, that goes all the way back to the history of the musical. It's not going to be back in the sense that, in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up, that, you had Hit Parade on television. You had the top 40s. Every song from musicals were in the top 40s. That's what people sang. That was the popular music of the day. Absolutely. Now, what we hear with, all of these MTV stars, it's not singable, even with American Idol. And the one time they did have Broadway songs on there, the kids had no idea. But it doesn't mean that young people can't be a part of it, and they still love it. It may not be in the same way we sensed it or whatever, but I find what makes anything great, and you were talking about The Sun Will Come Out. I suppose we all got sick of that like we get sick of White Christmas because of the repetition. But when you actually think about what's going on in the world today, The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow sounds pretty promising and pretty good. You know
what? I'm with you, Michael. Thank you so much for saying
those are great lyrics. And I just, as one of my assignments, had 5 students in my song class, sing that song and never hear each other sing it until they performed it to see what each one brought to the song. And one young lady, that I have has read. Oh, she's just beautiful, and I really have high hopes for her. She sang it extremely, slow, at a slow tempo. The sun will come out, almost like a recitative, like a poem, because I make them read their lyrics like poetry. It was so moving, and the class of students themselves gave her a standing ovation.
Oh, I love it.
I think sometimes they just are not in the right place at the right time to be moved. I think it's still, the possibility is there.
Right.
All right, let me...
Annie opened after all the years with Nixon, and Jimmy Carter had just been elected. I think the same show 2 years earlier, would have died.
Uh-huh.
The timing of the show, we had a new president in place like we do right now, and the hope, we were clinging to some hope that things would turn around.
Yes.
So, and I think we're there now, and even firmer, more terra firma than we were, because we really need the hope now.
Yes.
Things are really bad, and we have an amazing man as president, but of course we're not supposed to talk about politics.
Well,
let me ask a couple questions in here. I voted for Hillary in the primaries and voted for Obama for the election. Yeah. But let me ask a couple questions real quick, and these are going to be quick answers. Is the day of the triple threat performer long gone?
No. And I'll tell you why, I think. The days were wonderful when we expected people to do what they did best, whether it was sing or whatever. But, in the 80s and everything, the triple threat became a necessity. One thing is because of the money and the economics. Sometimes when I saw the revival of Oklahoma on Broadway, I loved it. I loved the Susan Stroman. I loved some of the new staging, all of that. But the girl did not please me playing the lead with her voice. You just cannot expect one person to do that ballet, sing the songs they were intended, act the role, look the role, everything. But we've come to that, and that's the way it is. And because, used to you had a big singing chorus, a dancing chorus. They cannot afford that now. So the person, I'm not saying the person that does all three is not multi-talented, but you're not going to get the very best of every little inch of that role. Do you understand what I mean? So I think, no, they're going to keep looking for triple threats.
I agree with everything he said. I think even now, even more so now, because they've pared everything down, like with the Sweeney Todds and stuff, where you have to learn how to read music and play instruments. And you have to be a quadruple threat. The competition is so rough out there right now. The whole industry's changed. Who's supporting it has changed. You have corporations in there. I think every kid out there who is listening to this, who wants to go into musical theater, should learn everything to the best of their ability.
That's right.
Don't take for 1 second thinking, oh, I'm a really good actress and I can sing really well, so I'm not a great dancer, no big deal. It is a big deal.
Yes. And even
the reality show.
And even the last revival of Company, the actors played the instruments.
There you go.
It was unbelievable. Of course, I did miss Sondheim's orchestration.
Totally.
That big
of course you did.
We missed that, but economically, right.
They're cutting things back. They want the person to do everything, and as Michael so wisely said, you cannot have a chorus of just the dancers and then the chorus of the singers anymore. They better be able to do everything.
Yes.
So they should study everything, and they should learn their history and know about these musicals in the past. They should know about Lerner and Loewe. They should know about Jerome Kern. They should know the styles of everything and then go in and nail their audition.
Right. Well, the show, there was a reality show a couple years ago called Grease, You're the One That I Want, and it's where they were casting for the newest revival of Grease on Broadway. Now, I personally am not a fan of the show Grease, but I was amazed and astounded and so happy to see something that was Broadway oriented. It wasn't just a dancing show, and it wasn't American Idol. It was you have to have the chops to do it all. And of course, I really like Kathleen Marshall, but do you think that spurred interest in musical theater?
I can't say I didn't see it. I didn't see what you're talking about, so I really don't know. I'm not up on that.
Well, I did, and we had a dear friend who was in the company of it, and I hope they want to do it because they have a need to tell the truth through music. I hope they do it because they are compelled, after they have spoken, that it's not enough that they need to sing something, and not because it's on friggin' American Idol or friggin' Grease to Broadway. I mean, I hope that's not the reason they're going into it, because to make a living in this business right now is really tough. But here's the good news about musical theater. I watched this wonderful evening with Roger Bart and Brian Darcy James with his interviewer on some series, interview series. And they all started, like Roger Bart was saying, what I wanted to do was Moliere. That's all I wanted to do, Moliere. And Brian Darcy James was talking about his theater background. I think he went to, like, Northwestern or someplace like that. And they said, but musical theater, if it's in you, A, you're drawn to it, and then B, let's be honest, they said, it pays better and it runs longer.
Yeah.
So the beautiful play that you're doing, at most, is going to run 6 months, whereas the musical can run for years, and they pay better. So at a certain point, you have to look at it. So if it's in your genes and you want to make a living in theater, not to include musical theater in part of your psyche and your goals and your training, I think is a mistake. Financially.
Well, do you think that the strike that was on Broadway, or actually was affecting the stagehands, wasn't it, about a year and a half ago? Do you think that the strike making the news at the same time the strike in L.A. over, the writer strike in L.A., it happened at the same time. Do you think that affected people's perception of Broadway, or it affected their perception of the importance of Broadway in American culture or musical theater in American culture in a negative way?
I personally don't know, don't think about it. It doesn't even cross my psyche anymore. But I do know about the strike that if you reduce it to the accompaniment being all synthesizer, as opposed to sitting in a room and hearing an orchestra like Michael Howard does over the summer with his 3 shows with 32-piece orchestra, that is a different experience. Don't even tell me it's the same experience, because it is not. 32 instruments being sent out into the air around me as I sit in the audience is I don't even have a word for it. It's just heavenly. Do you understand? Whereas a synthesizer is not the same thing.
No, it's not.
There's still people who argue about wearing body mics. Even I know in opera especially, the idea of being mic'd is a touchy subject. But in musical theater, a lot of times they want to go with synthesized instruments as well as lots of microphones around, so that they can amp up or put some reverb on people who don't have the training or don't have the goods, And so I know that in some cases maybe it's just community theater or reviews and that kind of thing.
Body mics now. Everybody uses body mics. Whether we can keep those channels open for body mics so people can hear it is something else. But unfortunately, that is, I don't know. What did I say? Unfortunately? No. It is fortunate or unfortunate, depending how you look at it. In a little theater, I don't think you need it. You're paying, if it's a 1,600-seat house and your audiences are noisy and you've got a big orchestra, you might need some support. I don't know. I wouldn't be so judgmental on the people who use body mics doing 8 shows a week. I mean, I would hate to say Mama Rose without some amplification. I think I'd have laryngitis after 4 weeks.
I love body mics myself.
That's why Ethel Merman sounded the way she did. God rest her soul, I loved her, but after she had done it, her voice was pretty well shot,
Right, and she had the gift. And, Laurie Beachman had the gift, God rest her soul, from Annie. And Andrew McArdle has it, Betty Buckley has it. It's a handful of people who can do 8 shows a week with no amplification, with such intense acting and so many songs. I mean, Patti LuPone, I hope she had a body mic, because she rarely missed a show, and that's an incredibly intense show. You can't do that without some kind of support from a body mic.
Well, it offers the actor some very intimate moments and with their voice, not having to push everything to be heard. It gives them much more dimension in their acting, their delivery of lines, singing, everything. So I think the body mics are one thing, but all of the keyboards and everything, that's a different story, And I understand, I haven't seen it. I'm going to be there in 2 weeks and see it, but I understand that the overture to South Pacific gets a standing ovation.
Michael,
a lot of it.
I've seen the show twice. It's breathtaking. The overture, to hear the full orchestra play it, is Oh, my God. It's mind-blowing.
I'm anxious to see it.
It's extraordinary. And, Michael, if you're coming to New York in a few weeks, I teach right across the street. I hope you come over and get my email from the program this evening and let me know when and where you're coming in. I would love to meet you.
I was hoping you would say that. I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to meet you, Trish. It's been great. But I will be in New York in 2 weeks, and I'm up there a lot. I'd love to meet you.
Okay.
And I'd love to maybe go to school with you sometime. That would probably open my eyes.
Well, Michael, I'm going to be even more specific. If you come to school on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the afternoon from 2 to 3:30, I'd like to put some amazing kids in front of you. They're juniors in high school. That's where I start my musical theater students. I want you to hear some amazing kids.
I would love that.
17, 16 years old perform for you.
I would love that.
And then recruit them for senior year for Tulane.
Okay. Maybe I can, Tulane's doing a very exciting thing. They're bringing in a group from Los Angeles next year as students from a lot of the schools that they're neighborhood friends, kids who, and they're going to call them the Posse. And they're bringing them in free grads to Tulane, hoping that they'll do study that will make a difference with these inner city kids, that when they go to college, they stay together and they finish college. It's a long story, and it's not musical theater, but maybe I can get a group of Posse for musical theater. Okay,
Michael, we're talking about this in a couple of weeks when you come up.
Okay, I will.
Please get from Trish my email address, and we want to talk about this, because our kids at Performing Arts are from 5 boroughs. We have kids coming in from Staten Island. It takes them 2 hours to get to school in the morning and 2 hours home. Do you want to ask me if they're dedicated?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
They're incredible. They have to audition against, literally, we had like 2,500 kids, and we take 80 freshmen. I'm telling you, our kids are extraordinary, and they need the help, and they need the support, and they need to know there's some places to apply besides Carnegie Mellon or Carnegie Tech and Juilliard.
Right.
There are, in fact, places like DePaul and Tulane.
There are, and our kids get a lot of attention, and like I say, in the summer, we do some pretty wonderful big works, but
Michael,
I do.
We're having dinner. That's
okay.
Great. I love you, but Michael, you and I are having dinner.
Okay. That would be good.
Well, I have a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. Either one of you can answer this question. Has plastic surgery invaded Broadway the way it's taken over Hollywood?
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
No one's admitting?
No, N-O.
Talking about us being weird, I preferred the Tony Awards to the Academy Awards. I think theater people look very real.
Yeah, they do. They do. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because, in the workshops that I teach, I strongly advise the kids, aside from going into theater, to not change what you look like or who you are on the outside, because that's an expression of who you are as a person, and that in the theater you can be accepted no matter what you look like, unlike TV or film. In the theater there's a place for everybody, or that's Jessica, what I tell my students. I don't know what y'all tell yours.
Thank God Jessica Tandy can still blink her eyes,
Okay, next question. Get rid of that one.
Yes, ma'am. I have 2 questions left. My second to last question is, what is the future of musical theater in the 21st century?
I think I don't think any of us can even project that, but I really like to think, at my age, you were talking about a while ago about the being able to suspend. I think as long as people can do that. For instance, my theater friends will tell me sometimes over in the theater department, I just can't go for a musical. I can't see somebody running over a mountain with a 100-piece orchestra behind them. And I said, I have no problem with that at all. That absolutely makes total sense to me. So I have a feeling that once you learn to suspend that belief, that it's always going to be there. And music, let's face it, we only sing in musicals when we no longer can say it with the same power, you know. So I think it's going to be there forever. Sondheim was very pessimistic there for a while, but I don't believe we'll ever lose musical theater.
I
really.
agree.
My last question, and this is just a question I'm going to ask at the end of every show. Can you get Barbra Streisand on my show?
No.
Okay, well, I thought I would ask, you know. I figured it couldn't hurt to ask, but is there anything that you guys want to say or put out there before we end this amazing call?
Well, buy a ticket.
Buy a ticket.
Yes. Buy a ticket buy a ticket to any theater. Straight theater, Shakespeare, musicals, whatever. The symphony, whatever, buy a ticket. Your heart will be absolutely changed.
Michael and I are in total agreement. Buy a ticket.
Yeah, buy a ticket.
That's it.
Any final words?
Just that I appreciate it, Trish, and thank you for calling. And Sandy, I can't wait to have lunch with you in New York. And Trish, if you're there at the same time, we'll take you.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
But Michael, I want to say one last word. If you don't call me or email me, my heart will be broken.
Well, mine will too. So I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to.
Okay.
Well, thank y'all both so much. I appreciate this, and I hope that that you will both at some point come back on the show. I hope to have different topics and different guests each week, but, you know, we can't do this. We're not singled out. I can't just have, you know, one person this week and never come on again, because the musical theater world is so complex and involves so many different talents that I know we're going to overlap in the future, and I hope you will be interested in coming back on.
Trish, count me in.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much, and this wraps up the premiere event that is the very first show of Musical Theater Talk. Thank goodness y'all liked each other. Oh, my gosh.
But setting up dates. Goodbye.
I know. Well, thank you, everybody who listened in. And even though the show stopped live about half an hour ago, the entire show has been recorded, and you can download it to your iTunes and get it on your iPod so that you can take it with you while you're exercising, while you're driving, or while you're standing in line to get your ticket to the next show in your area. So thank you, Michael, Howard, thank you, Sandy, Faison, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time here on Musical Theater Talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye.